Today we're playing Is Jared Telling the Truth? We don't know. It's a fun game show with lies abound. So, what we'll do is get stuck straight into it. I've been sent this video finally. I've been tagged in a lot of Twitter posts lately as well, sent a bunch of DMs, and it turns out this video was the cause of a lot of that confusion. Now originally I kind of just ignored it. I've been busy starting up my own business, which is going great, thanks for asking, but when someone sent me this, and straight away you can see down here, even just in this little blurb at the bottom, I kind of felt like maybe I should dust off the old video cap again and make this. Anyway, don't know if we'll end up uploading this, but here we are. We're going to have some fun in the meantime anyway. So, what he says down here, in comparison, the Linux kernel has only 63,000 lines of code, so that's not very many. That doesn't seem right, because I know for a fact that there are drivers that have almost that much. So, for him to make that kind of an assertion, no, it didn't sit right by me. So anyway, what we're going to do is let's type in lines of code in Linux kernel, and I'll bring that over here, and so we can see it says here, as of 2020, there is 27.8 million lines of code in its Git repository. That's a lot. That's like 27 point, okay, so let's, hypothetically, let's just round it down to 27. Compared with down here, it says 63,000 lines. That's a little bit of, I mean, we can't say it's intentionally misconstruing it at this point, but as part of a broader narrative, I think we're gonna, ooh, that's a good point. Let's keep tally. Let's play a game and we're gonna keep tally. Lines of code in Linux. And we can do this based on, let's move this over here. Let's keep track of all of these so that we can see how many lies, half-truths, all that kind of thing are being told. This is gonna be fun. Keep track with me. Now, what he says down here is probably true. So far, the 8.22 upgrade, which is not really a version 8 because there's no major like protocol level changes, so it's still really version 7, but I kind of think we'll let that one slide. They've added 281,000 lines of code and removed 92,000. Now, that should raise a whole bunch of red flags for you, because if you're changing that much stuff, there is no way that you've reviewed that line by line. Not a chance. Not a hope in hell. A really good developer, like a competent developer, if they're going through and actually analyzing what is going on, they're probably going to review somewhere in the vicinity of anywhere from 10 to 100 lines an hour, give or take, if they're doing a thorough job. Now, if you've done 300,000 lines, or even let's round it, say 280,000 lines. Well, actually, it's more because it's 280,000 added plus 92,000 removed. So, if you're doing 370,000 lines, there's not a chance that that has actually been reviewed. Not a chance. But anyway, so we should get stuck into this. Let's watch along. I haven't seen
everyone.
this, so
Jared Tate
we're all in for
founder
some
of
fun here
Digibyte
today.
Blockchain. Today I wanted to bring you a Digibyte version 8.22 development update, as well as like a 30,000 foot overview of core blockchain protocol development.
How long is this?
Added complexities that are involved with the whole process. So as many of you know, we've been working on version 8.22 since last fall. There was a
When is fall in the States? Because fall is different. Fall is the end of the year? No. This was, yeah, okay. We'll carry on.
series of events that happened over the last year and a half that led us to establish a new development process where multiple peer reviewers are involved, and it's actually been really good, and it's really taking Digibyte development to the next level.
Except it's really not. Let's put this down here. Taking development to the next level. Because nothing's actually changed, and in fact, if anything, it's very much the same as before. You've got, it's not being properly reviewed. So the idea is that you would have one person who would commit the code, and then two other separate people at least who are then going through and properly reviewing what has been written. The problem is so Jared himself has actually made a number of commits, a number of merges where somebody has committed it, and it hasn't actually been reviewed. He's also put in there himself on a number of occasions that he doesn't understand the difference between AC versus UT-AC and other things. They're actually in those pull requests, and so you can see that he doesn't know the difference, which is really quite concerning given that he is supposedly a lead developer of a multi-million-dollar blockchain, given this is the sort of thing that they teach you in high school these days. So we'll carry on.
However, at the same time, version 8.22 is the most complex and comprehensive upgrade we have ever done. And I'm going to get into some more details to explain exactly why that is. But before I do that, I want to kind of take a minute to step back and ask the community, hey, take a deep breath. I know that there's a lot of fudsters out there that are like, oh, nothing's happening, 8.22 is never going to get here. That's just... Well, it's not true.
Well, no, it is, actually. And so what we can do is bring up a new tab, and we'll go to... Bring this across. Here we go. 8.22. Let's have a look. When was the last commit? I don't know about you guys, but February 17th seems like quite a while ago. And that was merging a pull request. That was merging... Okay. So there was some stuff done back in January, but in terms of actual stuff, yeah, this is... Okay, so Barry's removed the legacy autocrypt fork code in February, but we're going back, like, there's basically been minimal stuff done this year. We're now at the end of March, so 3 months, and there is not a lot. Like, really, really not a lot happening. So let's... That's true. There is no development.
We're working hard.
Really? I can't see it. Maybe it's in this 8.22 Dandelion. No, it's not there either. Okay. Maybe we can go have a look on Gitter. Let's bring up Gitter. Why won't it merge the windows? Working hard. So it is now the 27th in New Zealand. This says March the 19th. There's literally been nothing. Nothing. Some mental rambling. Okay, so March the 19th. Barry says a couple of things back to him. That's... Okay, let's keep going back. Before that, March the 4th. Yeah, like, there's... It's dead. Like literally no discussion happening. Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty cool. We'll chalk that up as a third one. That seems fair.
But it's important to remember, we're all volunteers. We all have other,
And this is the same nonsense that the Digibyte Foundation used. They go, oh, guys, no, oh, you can't get mad at us. We're just volunteers. Well, why, as a volunteer, are you stopping other people from actually doing work then? Like, I don't get it. Why?
Day jobs and sources of income that...
Which may be true. Like, you may need another source of income, and no one's going to begrudge you that. But you don't have to lie about what's actually going on, or more specifically, what isn't going on.
Things we have to do in order to put food on the table. So things take time. But we're actually...
Yeah, we're now... Let's go back here. It's literally like 18 months. We can actually go all the way back, and we can see 8.20. November 15th, 2020. Okay, so not quite 18 months. Slight exaggeration. Let's go with 17 months then. But you see what I'm talking about. I've done a video in the past which shows this code compiling and running, and in this as well, just for a little bit of clarification here, is 2 algorithm upgrades. So it's not actually just what they've been doing with the alleged version 8, which has no new protocol level stuff in it. It's basically version 7.22 at this point. This one here, though, which Barry was working on, you can see when it was happening, actually is an upgrade. It is a protocol level upgrade. There are 2 new algorithms in there. And this was done over the course of a few weeks. I've actually got a Medium article, which we'll go into it really quickly. This happened literally 17 months ago. So if we go to my Medium here, yeah, I mentioned it in there. We've got a full timeline here of everything. So this was back August the 4th, 2021, and we go into all of it if you are bored on a weekend evening. Let's carry on.
If you take a step back and you put everything in perspective, we're actually...
But just again to clarify, so Barry did most of this over the course of a few weeks and actually included new algorithms. It's literally been 17 months and they still can't get anything together, not even including algorithm upgrades.
Actually in a good situation, and I am very excited.
It's in a good situation. Wait, did I hear that right?
Everything in perspective, we're actually in a good situation.
No. We are not in a good situation. That is going on the list. We're in a good situation. No, there is literally like 360,000 lines. There is no way anybody telling you that somebody has gone through and independently taken their time while they were writing that, and then we've gone and had 2 other people review it, they're absolutely lying. There is not a chance that that has been thoroughly reviewed. And if that hasn't been thoroughly reviewed, then the entire new development process is just a waste of time. To say you're in a good situation, it's 17 months and there's been nothing at all. 17 months since Barry had algorithm upgrades done. Now, to be fair, actually, Yoshi's done a lot of hard work. He put in most of the fixes for version 7.17.3. Barry also helped him, but other than that, like, it's literally, it's shocking when you go back and you see the commit requests, because the pull requests, because even Jared literally accepts things that he's not tested, which goes against the development process. Things are not in a good situation at all.
And I am very excited for where things are going to lead us. So, without further ado, I want to kind of give you some specific context onto what I really mean and what I'm talking about
We're
when
going
I
to have to fly
say
through this a lot better.
added complexity. And the first thing to keep in mind is right now, Bitcoin has a market cap of almost $1 trillion, right? If you add in all the other UTXO-derived blockchains that are independent, like Litecoin, like Digibyte, and others, you easily have a code base that is worth well over $1 trillion.
Sure.
So literally, the code base that Bitcoin's built upon, which Digibyte is an improvement on, is literally $1 trillion code base. And I believe it's the most complicated code base in the world today. So for...
No, it's really not. No, okay, it's the most complicated code base. Yeah, that's going on the list. Like, at most, that's conjecture. At most.
For those people out there who...
Like, he's literally written it down here. 620,000 lines of code versus something that has well in excess of... What, like 20 times that? Like, no. No.
Who are non-technical, non-developers who have no idea what they're talking about, saying, oh...
Okay, hang on. Because we've got to find this. People have no idea what they're talking about. Like, he's one of them. If we go into the pull requests and we have a look at some of the closed ones, where is it? It was Barry and it was Yoshi. Both of them made one. I don't remember what it was. But he didn't understand the difference between UTAC, which is untested acknowledgement, and ACK, which means you've tested it and it works, and you've reviewed it. Oh, it's in here somewhere. I'll go back and I'll find it and I'll try and include it in the comments. We don't have time to go through that.
Oh, we can just fork it and make the quick changes and then it's all good and we can roll it out. That's complete and utter nonsense.
Okay, so nobody has ever said make quick changes and roll it out. That's not what's being said by the majority of people, at least. In fact, I don't know of anybody who's saying make quick changes and roll it out. However, That is also a lie, because you can make quick changes and roll it out. And in fact, what happened was, back in the day, there was the Bitcoin inflation bug. I saw something from Richard Hart talking about it. Within the space of 36 hours, we had, because it's literally like a couple of lines of code, I think. We had reviewed it, we had built a new version, we had got it uploaded, and made it available to everybody. And we did that. We were actually, when did I notify them? It doesn't matter. Look, so we had that all done, like, from start to finish in like a day or so, because it was a small change. Now again, the same sort of thing has happened in the past with a lot of things, like when Jared introduced the bug that caused double spends on Digibyte. We had that out very, very quickly. And in fact, Gary, who is one of the developers who's been around with Digibyte since like 2014, he's probably committed more code than anybody else for Digibyte at this point in time. He pulled in a whole lot of the Bitcoin updates and things like that, and they did the whole thing from start to finish, and we tested it, and we pushed out this upgrade specifically so that we could fix this bug that Jared had introduced previously, which was causing these double spends, or permitting these double spends. We pushed that out in the space of about 4 days, once he finally got off his high horse and acknowledged that there may have been an issue. He spent the longest time trying to accuse certain large exchanges of simply fabricating it. So once he got off his high horse and realized, once we convinced him, there are double spends taking place, it was pretty quick. And we did the whole thing, like huge upgrade, in the space of a few days.
And here's why I'm going to explain why, right?
Okay, so this is actually two, because this needs to be people want quick changes rolled out, and it's not possible to do an upgrade quickly, because both of those separately are just nonsense.
So first of all, before I do that, let me take a step back, right? I put out a tweet a while ago that said there are 3 types of critical system software. There's safety critical, mission critical, business critical, and there's actually a 4th in some definitions, which say security critical, which Bitcoin and Digibyte and the core code base meet all those. So this kind of definition is up there on par with like nuclear reactor core code. You want to make sure that code is stable, is well tested, and is well cared for, and you got.
Okay, so I agree with him. You want to make sure it's stable and well cared for and well tested, but we have evidence, a lot of evidence showing that has not been the case historically with Digibyte, where things were simply pulled in by one person and never actually reviewed. For example, the code that he committed, which permitted those double spends. We genuinely don't know how much else is out there similar to that, which is why a lot of people are now rightfully calling for Digibyte to be rebased. Now, this is the same as what happens with Litecoin. So you start with your core Bitcoin code base and you bring in just the absolute minimum necessary changes that makes Litecoin Litecoin. So they only actually have, I think it's like 12.5 commits each time. Like, it's not a lot. Comparatively, with Digibyte, what happens is you take your existing code base, which we know for a fact has mistakes in it, and then you bring in a whole lot of changes. You literally patch in and roll forward every change that happens with Bitcoin on top of Digibyte. And that breaks a whole lot of things as you go forward as well. You can see the problem.
Got to be very hesitant before you make major changes, and when you do make major changes, you got to test, and test some more, right?
I agree with that. You need to test it. You need to make sure that the code is tested, but he's been guilty of committing merging someone else's pull request that hasn't been tested.
So,
do one thing.
Do a little bit more detail on how complex the Bitcoin and Digibyte core protocols are. We need to look at how many lines of code are actually in these code bases. So you have to forgive me.
Before we go any further, because I know where he's going to take this as well. Now, there is no reason for you to be proud of like a buttload of lines of code. And in fact, what we've seen as well happened with the likes of, say, when Bitcoin Cash forked from Bitcoin, they went through and they changed a whole lot of variable names and things like that and padded it out. And you can make it seem like there is hundreds of thousands of lines being changed for very little actual gain. Now, the more lines that you change, that's really, 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 really bad, because it means that those are each one of those is an opportunity for things to go horribly wrong. So to be bragging about 370,000 whatever lines of code being changed, you should be terrified.
Here for a second, I'm new to OBS, the Open Broadcast software, and there we go. Okay, let me minimize this. Trying to do this so I can talk while you have it on screen. So if we look at the Bitcoin core code base, when Bitcoin first launched in 2008, 2009, Satoshi had roughly 4 files, right? And between those 4 files, you can actually see it here. There was basically main.cpp, node.h, node.cpp. There was roughly 3,000.
Before he goes any further, my gut feeling again tells me that this is like not going to matter. This is just like circle jerking for the sake of it. We're about to find out.
Lines of code when Bitcoin first started, like the very first version, right? If you look at the core code base today, there's over 620,000 lines of code. So think about that. In a decade, there was well over 500,000 lines of code added to the complexity. And I can tell you, in the last 2 years, there has been more development.
So hang on. So over the course of a decade, Bitcoin's added that much, but Digibyte is doing half of that in like a few months? Again, does nobody got alarm bells going off here? Like, this is not right.
Development on Bitcoin than the previous 8 years before that. So we're talking about a very complex beast, right? Compare that.
Especially when you factor in the number of people who have like full-time jobs looking at Bitcoin. There is none. And he even said himself at the start of the video, we've all got other jobs, trying to put food on the table. Like, there should be major alarm bells going off for people right now.
Digibyte currently has around 700,000. So we actually have, because of the added algos and some other added stuff, we've actually got another 50 to 80,000 lines of code on top of the Bitcoin code, right? Well, this merge that we've been working on, and what we're doing with version 8.22 is we're taking all the work that Bitcoin has done between version 0.17 and version 2.2, which is 5 versions of Bitcoin, and we're rolling it into one big update for Digibyte to benefit from all the cool stuff that Bitcoin's added.
Yeah, that's true. So each one you can see comes through. So what we can do is, just to kind of clarify and give you reason for pause, reason for concern, you can see those and how they then get subsequently added on. Let's go back older. Jeepers, there's nothing from... Man, it's all Yoshi. When did the work on this... They redid it, what, in July? I'm pretty sure it was July. Jared said he was giving 110% and wouldn't stop until it was finished. Yeah, so much of this was actually Yoshi. I see very little actual Jared work in here, despite him promising 110%. I don't get it. Pretty sure it was July. It might have been at the start of July, end of June. Oh, man. Yoshi doing all of those fixes there for the testing. Come on. Man, how far back do we actually need to go? Oh my goodness. I think it's actually pretty impressive at this point. Oh my goodness. There's got to be a faster way of doing this. Maybe someone can let me know in the comments, because this is crazy. Merge file with upstream. Merge file with upstream. What the That doesn't seem right. Are you seriously telling me someone's gone through every single one of those and actually reviewed them? Like, there's not a chance in hell. Has someone actually gone through every single one of these and reviewed them? Like, no way has someone gone through and reviewed all of these. They can't. Okay, well, I can't actually. No, I can, because I can show you on 8.21, because it looks exactly the same. This is what it looks like when you take the older version. You're basically, these are all of the Bitcoin Core changes, and then we've got Digibyte being merged on top. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Let's try and carry on and finish as much as we can.
So far in the work that we've done over the past 6-7 months, okay, we have 281,000 code editions.
Yeah, you should be absolutely fucking panicking when you hear 281,000 lines. Like you should. It's
92,000 lines of code deleted. So literally, we have tweaked or modified it or updated half of the lines of code in the entire Digibyte Core protocol, right? Now, to compare the Digibyte Core protocol with about 700,000 lines of code and Bitcoin, roughly 640,000 lines of code, and this depends on which features you compile it with. If you compare that to the Linux core kernel operating system. So this is like the minimum amount of code that you get to run a Linux operating system, which is, for those of you who don't know, billions of your devices are powered by the Linux core kernel. That Linux core kernel only has 63,000 lines of code. I just checked that this morning. So
which we've covered up here is absolute bullshit. Like, there are drivers for individual hardware devices that are almost that big. Like, it's ridiculous.
Think about this complexity for a minute. When Bitcoin first started, 3,000 lines of code. 12, 13 years later, 650,000 lines of code. And it's been averaging about 50,000 lines of code per year over the last 5 years. Okay? Then you compare that to Linux with only 63,000. So this is a very complex, very dynamic system, and it's so easy for stuff to get broken and for things to happen. Well, one of those things that we've had that we're having issues with, that's actually been the main delay over the last 3 months, is Dandelion. So
this is true. There was an issue that Barry and I had raised back in 2020 about the way that Dandelion now interacts with the mempool rebroadcast and things like that. So this has been known since all the way back then. It was the last major issue that we actually had to overcome before the real version 8 was actually put out there. So this was something all the way back in November of 2020. Again, just for quick math there, that was 17 months ago.
Between Bitcoin version 1 or 0.17 and the latest Bitcoin version 2.2, there was a massive amount of mempool rework, which for those of you that don't know, when your client sends a transaction, the first thing it enters is something called the mempool, right? Well, mempool is integral to the functionality of Dandelion. So for those that don't know what Dandelion is a privacy protection mechanism. When you send a transaction, it doesn't broadcast your IP, so people who are running listeners can't basically link specific IPs to specific wallets, right?
That's not entirely true, but this is just him poorly explaining it because he doesn't quite understand it. So the mempool is a pool of transactions that is currently stored in memory on your computer. The way that it works, though, is you don't specifically broadcast your IP address, but rather what happens is if I'm connecting to your computer, you know my address, you know my IP address, and you know where it's coming from. Now, when you broadcast it to the mempool, you basically tell everybody that you are connected to, hey guys, I want to make a transaction. That's cool and all, normally. However, for IP address privacy reasons, you might not want people to know your IP address. So instead, what happens is you broadcast it to somebody, and you do what is effectively, like, think of it like a coin flip, except I believe we have it set to a 10% chance coin flip. So that might be like getting 3 heads in a row, for example. So the way that it works is you still broadcast it, but you broadcast it to one person. And so you say to them, hey, what I want you to do is do this coin flip and decide if you're going to pass that on to one person or everybody. So you yourself, like if I'm broadcasting a transaction, I'm only actually sending it to one person, and that's you. I send it just to you. You don't know if that's my transaction or somebody else's now, because it could be that this Dandelion up the stem it's not my transaction, and I'm just relaying it from somebody else. So you then take it and you go, okay, cool, I've done my coin flips and I got a tails on my second one, so I'm also only going to give it to one person. And that's the difference there. That's how Dandelion works. So you might then take your transaction and only broadcast it and pass it on to Jared, for example. Let's say you've connected to his node. And he then gets 3 heads in a row and he goes, cool, I've reached that threshold. I'm going to now broadcast it to everybody. But what that means is that they don't know my IP address. Everybody that he's connected to, they can't tell that's my IP address making those transactions. And that's why it's privacy enhancing.
Well, we have, in order...
I don't think that's actually a lie, but again, I think this is just a lack of general understanding, or if it's not a lack of understanding, it's a lack of his ability to be able to convey that in a accurate and meaningful way.
For Dandelion to function, something called stem pool, right? Well, stem pool mirrors mempool, but because you had all these major...
Stem pool doesn't actually mirror mempool, quite the opposite. In fact, you only put your transactions, your Dandelion transactions, into the stem pool.
Changes in the latest 2 versions of Bitcoin, it effectively broke Dandelion in numerous places, to the point where we've had to completely rewrite it from the ground up.
Well, it's not been completely rewritten from the ground up, but actually, who did that? Who was working on Dandelion? Wait, this is 20... What? Because it was Barry or Yoshi. They merged... merged from Dandelion. Okay, yeah. So I think a lot of it was... If memory serves me right, it was Barry and Yoshi that did it. Yeah, here we go. Dandelion thread runs a scheduler function. It was the 2 of them. And we've got here, we can see that Jared and GTO90 are just merging it, which is going, yeah, cool, okay, thanks for offering that to us. I'm actually going to accept that into the code base. So that's what GTO90 and Jared have done. They haven't actually done the coding there.
Now, there's so much complexity involved in this process that even the Bitcoin Core developers, who are absolutely all for adding Dandelion to Bitcoin Core...
Actually, they're not. That's why they haven't yet.
Actually gave up on it on the last 2 or 3 releases and said, well, it's too complex, there's too many things that are broken.
Okay, this has to go in here. Because it's not. There's no way. They haven't said at all it's too complex. Quite the opposite. Yeah, no.
And we'll do it later. So this brings me to my next point about added complexities of these systems.
So just to give you a bit of an example, the reason originally that they weren't... so this is even back when we were first working on implementing it, back in version 7. No, it wasn't 7.1. It was 6.17. Back in 6.17. The Bitcoin developers back then had basically said no, because it doesn't play nice with RBF, replaced by fee. And because that was quite important to Bitcoin, the people that originally wrote Dandelion were looking at ways of doing like a Dandelion Lite or something similar. And long story short, there was never any mention of it being too complex. Not at all. It's not complex. Yeah, so I don't know why he's saying that. But even all the way back then, they were saying... yeah, like we can't accept it because it won't play nice with this, and hence they were looking at other things, but yeah, whatever.
And what I mean by systems, I mean blockchains, right? And this applies to Bitcoin.
What is he on about?
On the last 2 or 3 releases, and said, well, it's too complex, there's too many things that are broken, we'll do it later. So this brings me to my next point about added complexities of these systems. And what I mean by systems, I mean blockchains, right? And this applies to Bitcoin.
Wait, added complexities of blockchains. So we're talking about added complexities of blockchains.
This applies to Digitite. This applies to Ethereum, even, right? And a lot of times with specific features for a blockchain, it can take years for it to be properly tested, implemented, developed, and released, right? So, for instance, with
Sure, maybe if you've got like a whole lot of people that are making literal like brand new changes that people have never seen before, like I have a feeling it sounds like he's about to say Segwit. Yeah, that's an absolutely perfect example, and people were skeptical of that. But what we're doing at the moment, what we're looking at in terms of the code here for version 8, at least the version 8 that he has allegedly been working on, is none of that. There is no breaking changes, there's no nothing. It's literally tested code that Bitcoin already has that is known to be working, and it's just trying to pull it into the existing blockchain that's already there. Like, they should be mostly compatible. So we've seen that with, actually, that's a really good point. We'll bring up Litecoin project. Let's see how many, if we go and have a look, let's go 0.18. This is the latest version of Litecoin, which has officially been released. I know that they're working on Mimblewimble, but commits. Okay. So we've got a few things, like we've got some documentation stuff here, which are like minor, but in terms of actual like changes from Bitcoin to Litecoin, that's it. It stops there. It's not that many. Like, I mean, you can count them on 2 pages. This is what happens because Thrasher himself has actually done this, and so what he's done is a rebase, and it's very efficient. He's taken the core Bitcoin 0.18 and brought in just the changes necessary to make it into Litecoin. Now, the same thing should be done with Digibyte, just the essential changes, because there's not that many of them. There's certainly not 360,000 lines worth. No. Anyway, let's carry on.
Segwit. It took Bitcoin numerous years for Segwit to actually be rolled out, right?
That's fair. Part of it was because it was a like brand new code that had never been anywhere before. It was having to go through a whole lot of testing, and then it also had to go through a long activation process. So that's true. But what Digibyte is doing right now is taking existing code that is known to work, that is known to be stable, and trying to kind of just mash it on top of what's already there and like stuff it into the box and go, just get in there, and you're punching the Play-Doh. And that's why there's problems that are arising when what should be happening is what Litecoin have done, which you can actually see here, where you take the code for version 0.18, which we can see here, 0.18, and it gets all the way up to there, and then you start with your Litecoin code instead. And so you have just minimal changes there, which could even be further compacted down and made even more reviewable, but whatever.
Taproot. Taproot has been in development. The first time I heard about Taproot was at a developer conference in Hong Kong in 2015. So it took 7 years from the first proposal to the point it was actually implemented and rolled out in Bitcoin, right?
Yep. Now this is I don't know about the specific dates, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt here. That's probably true, because it is brand new code that's never ever been done before. That's the difference.
Let's take a look at Ethereum 2.0. Ethereum 2.0 has been talked about for 7 years as well. It was originally supposed to be rolled out in 2019, and here we are in 2022, and it still hasn't been rolled out, right? And so what happens is when you have these very complex code bases where you keep adding features on top of features on top of features, it causes a lot of issues.
No, so we're going back. So this is adding features on top of features when we're not adding features on top of features versus merging, because that's the difference. So nothing that has gone on yet in his 8.22 branch is new. There is no new stuff. It's not new code that's never been written before. It's simply pulling in existing code, and that's the difference there. So Yeah, no, to misconstrue that and say that all of that stuff is problematic and that's why it's taken so long with Digibuy is just a bold-faced lie.
To give you an example, look at the Ethereum roadmap that was released last fall. I spent almost 5 hours a week or two ago trying to dive into the technical details on each one of these features.
That sounds more like a self-own rather than anything else at this point.
And after 5 years, I still didn't quite bring it all together and understand it. And this is after a decade of working on blockchains. And it's not just me. You look and see what one of Ethereum's lead developers just said last week. He said, in Ethereum's history, complexity has never decreased. Every Ethereum improvement proposal is piling on top. Every major change, merge, sharding, vertical, stateless is one more nail. I'm extremely frustrated when a research proposal says everything's figured out.
I get that. And so the main bugbear that a lot of people have with Jared's process of doing a merge is that is the same. You're piling stuff, like you're just piling shit on top of shit without stopping to look at like your foundation and your base at all. Like, at what point do you go, maybe the way that Litecoin have done it, where they take their stable base of Bitcoin, which is arguably one of the most stable in the world. I mean, you could also argue that Litecoin's is actually even more stable for a couple of reasons, but yeah, I'd humor that. But anyway, you can say that if you were to take Bitcoin's codebase and only bring in just the necessary, that you're not going to be nails on top of nails sort of thing. You're only going to be bringing in the essentials, and you're going to have a far more efficient codebase. Like, easily, you could argue that. Hands down, and I would, I'd give that to you for sure. Like, that's an easy win. So what he's doing here is he's very much misconstruing the merge versus
it's just engineering
Rebase.
Now. And he goes on to say, as good as it feels that we're approaching the merge, I must emphasize that Ethereum is not going in a clean direction. It's achieving results, but it's also piling complexity like there's no tomorrow.
Wait, so hang on. He's complaining about not having any time for Digibuy, but also saying he spent 5 hours looking at the Ethereum roadmap? Like, but he's going, I'm 110% dedicated to Digibuy, but I'm going to spend 5 hours looking at an Ethereum roadmap and accomplishing nothing. Like, okay, dude, righto.
If the protocol doesn't get slimmer, it's not going to make it. Well, this kind of brings up my next point,
Yes, so the protocol should get slimmer. You know the best way to do that? We don't need all of that extra fluff from Digibyte. Like, we don't need to be piling on, like, every time, because it's not just the total line count, but it's the line changes that are problematic as well. And so what we can do is we can literally start with what is known good, the Bitcoin codebase, and bring in just the essential amounts. Like, we don't have to bring in absolutely everything that's in the codebase right now, and that's the beneficial part. And the really great part is if it compiles and it synchronizes and it validates correctly, you know that your math is right. Because if I try to say, yeah, well, actually 3 times 4 is 15, you're going to know that I'm full of shit and you're not going to talk with me. And that's the same way that the blockchain works as well. Because if your math says 3 times 4 is 15, it's wrong. And you're not going to be able to synchronize with people if that is your expected value. So
when it comes to Digibyte development, we want to keep it simple, straightforward, and focused.
We want to keep it simple, straightforward, and focused, but we're having a little at the fact that there's 360,000 lines changed.
Okay, but we also want to make sure, most importantly, it's stable and it's secure.
And the best way for it to be stable and secure is not to have literally half a decade's worth of unreviewed code being piled on top of with even more non-reviews. You don't do it. You don't do a merge like that. You rebase it exactly like what we're seeing here with Litecoin. Smart.
Because with this many changes, this many things, and this many issues, it's not as simple as just forking from the latest version of Bitcoin and slapping a Digibyte logo on it and then rolling it out, as some people.
Yeah, but Barry, solo, did more, got further. I think it was like in 6 weeks from when he started 8.20. Like, he got further in 6 weeks doing a rebase than Jared plus Co have got in 17 months now. Like, that's the difference. He got further and implemented algorithms than what Jared and Co have. 6 weeks. Solo, getting it ready for somebody else to subsequently review it. He got further. Like,
people think that that's possible, and you know, good luck to you. Go fork yourself, right? Like,
go fuck yourself. You mean like the time that actually happened back when there were double spins occurring on the Digibyte blockchain because of the code that you'd committed that was not reviewed? That happened. The code that you, Jared, committed got brought into Digibyte and caused double spins. And then, over the course of a week, we were able to, thanks to Gary saving your ass again, get that code merged and brought in from Bitcoin at the time, and we were able to patch that and get that submitted out to all of the exchanges and the mining pools. Like
it's not gonna work, trust me.
But it has in the past, and if you do it right in the future, it could.
You know, so I know that there's a lot going on, and I know that maybe I've gone over.
There's actually really not, and in fact we have empirical evidence here that shows that if we go to 8.22, so September, we've got like minimal commits happening there. They merged some previous stuff that happened previously. Like, when was that actually committed? Is there like a GTO committed it? When did merge pull request? When was the pull request made? January. There we go. January 23rd. So literally nothing has happened. Okay, we'll humor it. Let's have a quick look at both of these. Oh, sorry. We'll look at the two here. February. So this was done in January. That's what we looked at. This was also done. Okay, so nothing's actually happened since January. So we've been literally 2 months without it being touched at this point. Really? Are you fucking kidding? And wait, so hang on. What is he trying to say?
I know that there's a lot going on, and
there's a lot going on. Oh, Jared, you should be a comedian. Let's put that under there. Let's put that under. There's a lot going on, but get commits say otherwise. 2 months, nothing. It's oh, Jared, you're so
maybe
funny.
I've gone over some of your heads, but I'm trying to really kind of frame the entire perspective for people to really kind of show you where we're at. So, what's the current status? Well, currently we've got a bug because of Dandelion that when you run the client, it runs fine for a couple of hours.
And it eventually crashes. Now, this is exactly the same thing that I mentioned that we'd got to with berries. Basically, it's just to do with the way that Dandelion interacts with the stem pool versus the mempool and things. So.
You can send and receive transactions, but it randomly crashes. And we fixed a couple of these random bugs, but it's Dandelion related. We're working through it. We're close, but I'm not going to give you an.
Is he really? Because I thought that I saw all of it being Barry and Yoshi. Like, okay, but sure.
Approximation on when that's possible, because I thought we would have had it out a couple months ago, like I was hoping. I originally was actually hoping by Christmas, but this is another reason with such a complex code.
So he's saying that there's this one thing that's been stopping it since Christmas, but we've had nothing, no commits, no nothing since January. So maybe somebody would go, instead of spending 5 hours looking at the Ethereum roadmap after you've promised that you're going to give 110%, maybe maybe it might be time to bring in somebody else, to contract a developer to go through and debug it. I mean, you've got some really, really competent ones. You could get Barry, you could get Gary, you could get Yoshi, you could get somebody else, like, from outside. Like, it's not impossible. And if money's a problem, we've done crowdfunding before to great success. And Barry went and accomplished everything that was required before Jared threw it all out. So you could do crowdfunding if it was a problem, like if money was the issue, and get somebody else. But if you'd rather spend 5 hours looking at the Ethereum roadmap going, I don't understand, then don't tell people in July of last year, 9 months ago, that you're giving 110%.
Codebase, I don't like...
That needs to actually go on there. It's kind of like a half, we'll call it though, but giving 110% since July to the core code base to get the upgrade out. Because he put the tweet out himself. He said he was going to give 110%.
Giving release dates because, you know, issues come up. I mean, this is very, very complicated software. So
yeah, it's a very big issue as well, that Ethereum roadmap. Oh, I hate how that always stops Digibyte upgrades.
The next thing that we're working on are tests. So what are tests? Well, tests are how we discover these bugs, and that's how we're discovering some of these bugs. So we don't release them up into the wild. Well, there's literally hundreds of tests that can be run that are automated. So a test is basically code.
Those are known as the unit tests, and Yoshi went through and fixed up most of them for version 7.17 back last year. I think it was like April, because if memory serves me right, it was right after my motorbike accident. It was pretty much entirely Yoshi, a little bit of Barry, but I don't think anybody else ever actually did anything.
That is written to help you develop find bugs and make sure everything in the software performs as needed, right? But that's another area where with every additional version, every additional feature, there's added complexity to the test. So there's almost just as much code written in tests as there is in the actual protocol itself. So
sure.
That's another very complicated aspect of this.
But, like, so what? Like, who cares? Like, what does this have to do with anything? Like, this is completely irrelevant right now. Like, yeah, the unit tests are in there. Yeah, they need to be customized a bit for Digibyte. But, like, where is this history up here showing these unit tests? Like, whatever.
So, without running on for too long, I want everybody to know we're working on it. There's multiple devs involved.
You're working on it? Really? Like, we have proof that there's been nothing for 8 weeks, 9 weeks, whatever, since January. So, like, I mean, sure, okay. Full disclosure, it will probably be in somewhere, like we can see here, it starts off in Smart Array, Feature, Fixed Dandelion Locks. But it's not. Like, we can look at the open pull request as well. And it's not there. So the feature branch, jeepers, the initial fix for the infinite supply still hasn't even been merged. Like, come on, this is bullshit. This was July, and it hasn't, like, so this has been validated by Yoshi as being an issue. JNS Chalk has also confirmed it. And it hasn't been, like, the fix hasn't been implemented because they're going, well, we need to make more unit tests now. But nobody's making these unit tests. I'm not a developer, but I still had to write that shit. JNS Chalk actually wrote some really, really good stuff here as well. And just... it's ridiculous.
I want to also say, despite what people say, I'm not controlling what goes in and out. I am just one of...
But you are, and you've specifically said here a number of times in the past. Well, that was one of my favorites. Where is it? Where Jared talks about throwing it out, because it's in here. And he says himself, where is it? I need to find it. I'll go back and find it. And he talks about, yeah, I mean, right here. I'll keep working on 8.21, but for the time being, I've revoked Joe's GitHub access. right? Like, so individually, he's just decided that. Like, there are a lot of cases where that's the case. He's actually committed code directly rather than making a pull request as well into version 8.22 feature branch. He's also merged code that other people had made a pull request for to get reviewed that didn't get reviewed that he subsequently merged. Like, so yeah, sure. I mean, okay. Hang on. What is he saying? Because let's put this.
Too long. I want everybody to know we're working on it. There's multiple devs involved. I want to also say, despite what people say, I'm not controlling what goes in and out. I am just one of many reviewers, and it takes.
He has the full. It's basically like a super admin, effectively. So as a super admin, you can pick and choose as part of an organization who else has administrative properties, because it was set up under his account. Because it was set up under his email address with his phone number, he has full ultimate control. As you can see here, where was it? He's able to add and remove other people from having privileges. So yeah, he absolutely does. And you can look through the commit history and see he's committing things directly in violation of the new development process. He's merging things that are unreviewed in violation of the new development process. He's literally just an absolute renegade. Like, he answers to nobody.
3 reviewers for a code edition to be included, right?
It was actually 2. But I can't be really putting it on.
For all the nonsense and all the drama and all the FUD in the group out there who keeps attacking me and blaming everything and, oh, Jared's fault, everything's stagnated, nothing's happening.
No, okay, hang on. It's not Jared's fault. It really is, because no one wants to fucking work with it. Like, nobody wants to work with it. When was the last time you saw anything from me get committed? When was the last time you saw anything from JNS Chalk, who was a new person? Like, even Barry just wants to get his algorithms out. Like, that's the only reason he's still been around. And even still, when was the last time? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, nobody wants to work with him because he's a bully in the playground. And people are basically only still around because they're afraid of him. Because he's a fucking tyrant. That's the only reason people are still around. They just don't want to work with him. Nobody wants to work with him at all.
Simply not true. And, I would encourage you, instead of, causing issues, why don't you come help us? And if you don't know how to code...
Because nobody wants to have their work thrown out. Which is exactly what happened to Barry. And so Jared himself has set this precedent where he doesn't like it, and he throws it out. Which happens... Where are we? Because it's up here. He speaks about the jumbled mess. Yeah, here we go. If they don't want to work together, let them keep fighting their jumbled mess. But know this, we will have 2 competing code bases emerge from this. One tidy and documented, one garbled and hacked together. Missing tons of things with much shit broken. They will fight for weeks and months to try and fix it. Which is ironic, given that even in its current state from November of 2020, the code base that Barry had been working on is still further along than what Jared was involved with. And it's literally been 17 months now. So that is him right there stating that. He's the problem. Barry had done the work, he'd gone and brought in the new algorithms, and then Jared said, no, not interested, don't want to have a bar of it. Take it away, get rid of it. So it is 100% his fault.
Support us, help.
Because just to clarify, it was him that said that. He's subsequently been backed up by GTO90, who's kind of decided that, nah, because this new development process since means that there's no way for you to do any kind of a rebase as opposed to merging, that he's just going to blindly follow Jared now. There's no other way. It's these new rules basically say nothing at all about a rebase. We can't have a rebase. So we're only going to do this, what Jared has said, which was brought into play 6 months, because it was April afterwards, after Barry had made that code and was getting ready for people to review it.
Organize a developer bounty program, right?
Yeah, we did that. We organized a developer bounty program. Let's go back and listen to that again. Hang on, because this is...
I would encourage you, instead of, causing issues, why don't you come help us? And if you don't know how to code, support us. Help organize a developer bounty program, right? I mean, that's one of the things I'm talking to some of the people about the Digibyte Foundation. It would be awesome if we could get a community-driven pool of funds together to sponsor specific either developers or bounties to help attract more people to help. And
we did that, though. Despite the fact nobody wants to work with Jared, we still did that. Why wouldn't it merge my window? Here we go. We did the fundraiser. We fucking did that. And it worked. And we got the code committed. It's there, but Jared still threw it out. Look, let's have another look at this one. We've got another one that we can bring in. Fundraising for the POW implementation. We did that, and Jared threw it out. Can we put that? That's not really a lie. That's more just like he's completely leaving it out.
I can say that there's at least 5 of us that have been working consistently on this upgrade, which I said is massive. I mean, you're literally talking about half the lines of code.
Again, that needs to be like red flags, hands down red flags. That many lines of code have been touched. You should be scared shitless.
300,000 lines of code.
This is not a good thing. This is a bad thing.
Code that have been changed or altered or modified, right? That's a lot. So, keep that in mind. We're working on it. It's going to get done.
You're not working on it. We've been over this. That's somewhere in the list. I'm not going to re-add it. But there's been nothing for 8 or 9 weeks now. Nothing. Not touched at all.
8.22 is going to be the best version of...
No, it's not, because you're taking a shaky foundation and you're building the tower further up. And so as a little bit of wind comes along, because the foundation is shaky, the whole thing's going to come tumbling down. You know the story of the 3 little pigs and the wolf? Yeah, it's just like that. It's like they're going to huff and they're puff and everything's going to come tumbling down.
Digibyte yet. It's going to definitely be the most well-tested. And also...
But it's not. We've had more testing on other things. Especially when Jared himself is making commits directly into the feature branch. When he's merging pull requests untested.
We're doing other things. There's a lot of talk about what happens in the year 2035 when the last Digibyte is mined. Does the reward actually go to 0 like it's supposed to?
No, it doesn't. It's not going to go to 0. We've got empirical evidence of it.
Or does it, continue?
There are 2 issues here. Number 1, the supply curve is fucked. Number 2, it doesn't stop. It carries on emitting it.
On at 1, which is, what people are talking about, the infinite supply inflation bug, which has not been fully tested, documented.
You're full of shit. Let's add that to the list. 14. Infinite supply has not been tested.
And sorted, but that will be done before version 8.22 is shipped.
We're going to find that right now, because we can see that there are tests. Okay. Thanks to JNS Chalk for testing the block reward. He's tested it. He's also done some more stuff. Where are we? Oh, it was an issue, wasn't it? It was raised by a Yoshi. Invalid supply curve. I don't know about you, but how much more thorough testing can you possibly get? But instead, Jared would rather gaslight the community and say, this is not an issue. This has not been... Let's listen to that one more time.
It's supposed to, or does it, continue on at 1, which is, what people are talking about, the infinite supply inflation bug, which has not been fully tested, documented, and sorted, but that will be done before version 8.22 is shipped. But the last step before we start working on that...
he's fully... Yoshi has done the hard yards and done a whole lot there. JNS Chalk also done a whole lot of work. Same deal. And yes, you can fast forward and replay it inside of the actual code base as well. Again, in testing. Not a problem whatsoever. And see that, yes, it will carry on adding 1 every single block. There is infinite supply right now, and the supply curve is fucked. So Jared's literally gaslighting the entire community right now by saying that.
That is this Dandelion issue, which is actually a way worse issue, because if people start sending transactions, the client crashes, and then there's an issue with those transactions not getting.
It's not way worse. It's really not. It's... Sure, it needs to be fixed, and Barry and I knew about this, and we told Jared back in, I think it was December of 2020 originally, about it being an issue. We told him again in January of 2020 about it being an issue. Like, I wrote a huge long list, which you can actually, it's somewhere in this, where I go through and I tell him about all of the existing, no, that's the fundraiser. That's fundraising for ProgPow. It's in here. I go through and I give him a list of all of the stuff. Yeah, here we go. Mempool rebroadcast changes from upstream also mean Dandelion needs lots of checking, along with having changed disabled Dandelion to Dandelion to be more in line with naming conventions. So we knew that Dandelion was problematic. And that was back in January, this particular message of 2020. Like, it's not the first time that I'd messaged him about it, so...
Where they're supposed to be, that's a real problem. So we're going to make sure...
So is infinite supply when you've sold everybody on the fact that it's going to be hard cap. Could you imagine if Bitcoin came out tomorrow and went, oh, sorry guys, we're not stopping at 21 million. We're going to carry on and you're going to get a minimum of 0.25 Bitcoin every single block. Like, you're completely undermining a lot of the reason that people buy into it.
Sure that doesn't happen, and I can promise you when it ships that it's not going to be an issue. So
let's have a quick look, because this was April 3rd. This was July 16th. When was this last mentioned? September. 9 months ago. What the fuck? It hasn't been pulled in. It's still broken in the current codebase. Sure, it needs additional tests added in there, but like, it's literally not been touched. It's completely ignored.
And in fact, because there's been so much work done on our implementation of Dandelion, there's a good chance that the Bitcoin core devs could basically say, hey, look what Digibyte did. We could actually use that. And
no, that's going on the list. No way. It completely still conflicts with RBF, which is why, in fact, if you go back, because Barry and I have talked about this a lot in the past. If you go to, was it a pull request? No, we were going to the code base, and we're going to have a look in the past commits. You'll see that he's removed RBF. Litecoin, disable RBF. Ta-da! Because even Litecoin knows that you don't need it if you're Litecoin. Digibyte doesn't need RBF. Bitcoin needs RBF, replaced by fee. It doesn't play nice with Dandelion. That's the whole reason why it never got implemented by the core developers in the first place. So this is just, again, more ignorance, more intentional ignorance, or misleading the community. It's one of those two.
It could actually be the path for Dandelion to get merged into Bitcoin Core.
It's not happening.
It's so much complexity and so much going on there.
It has absolutely nothing to do with the complexity.
So there is an upside to that. So
it's full of shit.
I know this video has probably gone on a little bit longer, but I know that there's a lot of frustration out there. And just because, you know, if people look on Gitter, which is the dev chat, doesn't mean there's not chats happening. And in fact, here recently, a lot of the conversation has been happening directly on GitHub.
But there's nothing happening on GitHub. You can get notified for it. Like, nothing is happening. Nothing is happening on Gitter. And he himself said, everything should be out in the open on GitHub, on Gitter. Like, it's literally not happening. It's been over 2 months now.
Which GitHub is where developers live, right? And, you know, you can click around. There's a lot of the stuff. It's not easy to see, but it's there. And if you go to the Digibyte core repository here, you should see that there's not just the Digibyte protocol. There's this Rosetta, which is the Coinbase Node API that's being worked on.
Okay, let's see if Jared's been working on Rosetta. Let's see if he's been working on Rosetta. Or is this somebody else? Yeah, he merged it. That's it. So, no? That's, I'm gonna say no? Who are you, Ellie? Elena is who has worked on Rosetta. Awesome. Absolutely no idea who you are. First Bridge. And you worked on that, making some changes. Cool. Good on you, Ellie. Removing spaces? Updating how many tests it runs. Cool. I mean, that looks pretty good. That's clearly been pulled from somewhere else. Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's not Jared.
There's a website, there's a server.
Wait, when was the website? Ah, DGBIO. Right, updated 18 days ago. Yeah, that's the website. Like, that's other people. That's, I mean, we can easily go here, and again... Jared and development team working on lots of stuff. Because it's not. So DGBIO, let's have a quick look and see who was making... Yeah, Murat. Awesome, of course it was. Crypto.com in a February update. Like, respect that Murat's gonna put that in there, because the dude does work. But that's not like... It's not like active development. You've added Crypto.com exchange. Cool. And now it's been changed to the February update. And that's going to be changed as well to the March update in a couple of days. Like...
There's utility. I mean, we have dozens of repositories that we've worked on and updated.
And they're not being updated!
That are here. So there's a lot more to the Digibyte ecosystem than just simply Digibyte, the core protocol, which the core protocol is obviously the most important part. But there's also been ongoing work to make it easier to develop and build on top of Digibyte. Not to mention, a lot of us devs, actually all the devs, the projects they're working on outside of the core protocol are actual applications and utility for end users built on top of DGB.
That's true. So Gary is involved heavily with Lifehash, and you'll see him sometimes committing code as Lifehash. Hasn't happened in a while though, but I know that he did that in the past. The main actual code that is being worked on, hands down, 100%, is Matthew, is MC Trivia, working on DigiAsset X. Now, Jared and GTO90, back in January of last year, of 2021, both said no, hands down, no way, we're not touching DigiAsset X. We're not going near it, we're not implementing it into the Android and iOS, we're going to block that, it's not happening, we're not going to let you commit that code. The irony is, he's now talking down here, hey all, I want to start a discussion about fully retiring DigiAssets V1 and what should be done with mobile wallets. The best path forward, Jared, is if you pulled your head out of your fucking ass and implement the DigiAsset X, or let somebody else do it like was originally the plan. Instead, you and GTO90, like everything else, said no. You stonewalled it. You stopped the development. You said you're not going to merge it.
So there's a lot going on, and it's not...
No. There's not a lot going on. Have we got that already? We're in a good situation. I feel like we've already covered that.
You know, what some people say. So that's kind of, I guess, the 10,000 foot overview. If you have more specific questions or you want to have some, a little bit more technical details explained, please let me know. Tag me on Twitter, hit me up. But to end this video, I really want to thank all of you out there in the Digibyte community who believe in Digibyte, who, promote it, tell people you know about it, and work to make it better and more adopted every day. Because I truly believe, and I would not be here, going on 9 years if I didn't believe this. I truly believe Digibyte is the best combination of speed, security, and decentralization in the world today.
That's going on the list. There is no way in hell that's true. When was the last time that Bitcoin was double spent on? Because I know that with Digibyte, it was only a couple of years ago. The decentralization, no one wants to work with Jared when he's literally just saying, nope, nope, not happening. Nope, you're not going to be doing this. You can work on your own code base, go bugger off, it's going to be a jumbled mess, and I, Jared Tate, are going to work on something that will be holy, and will work, and everybody will love me. Yeah, no, nope, nope.
And it's going to be very important for the world of tomorrow. And, you know, I can't thank you enough. There's a tremendous amount of upside, and Digibyte's really one of the only truly decentralized blockchains in the world today. So
it's not. Like, that's just it. We have proof that it's not. When Jared is pulling the strings, he's literally become the tyrant that he sought to dethrone.
With that being said, thank you, everybody, and until next time, Digibyte on. Cheers.
Okay. Yeah, so there was a lot to cover in there, and in fact, maybe we should like quickly bring that up as well and have a look at that. Let's bring those out real quick. Why not? Like, it's just not. Like, it's not true. So much of what he said is not true. It's intentional misdirection, or it's just blatant gaslighting of the community. So, I don't know. I don't even know if I'm gonna upload this. Maybe we'll see. Let's go back. I'll review. I'll watch it again. But at the moment, if you are actually still part of the Digibyte Twitter, you need to be asking a lot of serious questions, because Jared is blatantly outright lying to you, misguiding you, misdirecting you, gaslighting you, or bluntly lying to you at this point, over and over and over again. Yeah, I don't know. I feel sorry for you if you're still involved. I, for one, I cashed out a long time ago. I got rid of every last Digibyte that I held. I mentioned recently to a number of other people that I have one e-gold. I don't even actually know the name of that project. I'm sorry. But it was something that the likes of Mr. Thiz... Oh, how do you pronounce it? I can't even pronounce his name. And Blazord. The two of them were both heavily involved in it, and they were being remunerated as creators. Then you have the likes of Matthew, who's probably the only one who's actually actively doing things in this space around DigiAsset X, and it's fantastic, and I take my hat off to him. But he's literally the only one at the moment, and nobody else wants to work with Jared, nobody else wants to play with him. He continuously gaslights the community and blatantly lies to them, and at this point, you shouldn't trust him. You really shouldn't. There are a lot of other ways that this could have been tackled, and a rebase would be better than a merge, even though he mentions in there, he'll put in there in his tweet, rebase/merge, even though they're only doing a merge, which is what's causing all of these problems. And Barry, back 18 months ago, had completed the rebase and was literally just fixing this one last issue with Dandelion. Like, he'd also implemented all of the algorithm updates and things like that as well, something that hasn't happened. We've done the fundraisers in the past, and again, we paid Barry for that, and Jared rejected the code. So this was before there was any kind of like requirement for any pull request. The code is in the Digibyte core repository though. Like, it's in there for anybody to download. You can compile it right now and it will work. And it will run. And it'll run on the current blockchain. And you could run this version 8.21 like no problems. It's fine. And you'll run it like right now. It'll occasionally crash because of the Dandelion issue, but it will run, it will synchronize, you'll validate. The issue is Jared, in short, and it's really unfortunate to have that video from him, which further cements it. So, yeah. I feel sorry for a lot of the Digibyte community, because they've been taken for a ride by him. But hey, life is greener on the other side. I hope you've enjoyed this. This has been the longest video in a while that I've made, because kind of got out of the Digibyte space. So maybe what I should do is like make a couple of clips out of this. That might be even better. Anyway, leave your comments and things down below. I should probably go and review the existing ones that have been there from the last 6 odd months, but nothing else has changed in Digibyte, right? There's probably more activity in the comment section than there is in the development space of core Digibyte, so that's really saying something. I feel sorry for you. Anyway, you can demand better. You can do this without Jared. You can get other people involved. You can fork it. You can make Digibyte what it should have been. Wish you all the best. Cheers.